Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to VHEL. This is the Fortnite Spring Drop Week 6 gameplay. How you doing, everybody? My name is Kenzo SSW. Alongside me is Cherry J. Welcome, Cherry. How are you doing tonight?
I can't complain whatsoever. In for some phenomenal Fortnite Battle Royale action as we enter on the duos competition as heated as ever as we're entering that spring season. Already the shots come flying as Lord Wraith can be the first one down.
Indeed, it's Lord's Racing. We can already see too many players already just engaging in a lot of firefight. It's always like this in the early hours, in the early matchup. And you just see, oh, look at that! That is WTJ with the early elimination on Beefster. So now it's just a very equally game so far, or we should say. But as we always say, it is a heck of an intense firefight. Remember, this is 4 points as the season is starting to pick up very heavily. Teams are now trying to at least fight for playoff spots. As again, as always, we said before, this is a very high-paced matchup.
We're currently just looking towards testing the waters, right? This is game 1 out of 2 games possible, and whether or not you want to play offensively right off the bat, that will kind of be the question. But these teams that might be looking for some kind of offensive firepower to kind of round out their scoreline coming into the postseason with some extra points from kills and whatnot, it seems like it's going to be pretty volatile, right? You get a lot of early deaths coming through, and with the health pots being picked up, a decent bit of damage to be applied, down to 74, and as Ted Bayer sitting in this angle with the bush being drowned. First decks, going to be the first one offline, and Ted Bayer having no issue sharp and feasting on their opposition.
That is equally great play. The movement on display from Ted Bayer. And as you said, it's pretty much a player's choice. Some players want to play aggressive, and others like to stay in the back and just take their time and get a lot, and not get a lot of kills, but just kind of survive as long as they can. As we see TLGG and Ted Bayer, who really played a lot good last week. They didn't come up with the winners, though. In fact, last week it was a back-to-back winner sweep between two of our last top champions. But again, some of these players in Division 1A are top team players. It's always make sure these teams are airing out and just make sure they're fair and balanced. As we head over to Astro Zero and Saint K, already boxing up 2 eliminations in total between the 2 players. And again, speaking of movement, lots of players are picking up the zip line, the Slapperoni Pizza, the new overdrive grenade. A lot of these players are just using the new movement mechanics to their advantage.
Currently just looking to see what'll happen in this build fight currently on this high ground. It's going to be Astro in a tight situation. Shotgun gets fired, but they still drop down.
That was just really bad for them. I can just see they were trying to play a bit more aggressively, but once Outcast just kind of catch them off guard, that's when you really start to see that's when to see if they can clutch or break in that moment. And last time, yeah, it just did not work. As we take a look at the map, 52 players left in the map, and just taking a look at it, lots of players spread out and numerous POIs. Some people at Humble Hills, Frigid Fortress, not a lot of people at New Sanctuary though. Some people just hanging around outside of it. And again, this is where we start to see a lot of the action just slow down, because a lot of times these players really just kind of already got the early eliminations out of the way, and it kind of shows you a lot of times, again, just make sure know where you're landing, grab your stuff, and immediately get out, because you never know who is going to come from behind you and just snipe you out of the sky. As we just take a look again at the map, it's so far equal as we see a little bit of action at Humble Hills. And again, the question is going to be, what's going to be the play style? It's either going to be stay back and just let the chaos fold around you, or go on the aggressive and try and take out as many people as you can.
I think a lot of these teams are going to be adapting more towards that former option, right? Going to try and play that defensive strategy will allow you to not only have more points coming in from placement, but beyond that, you're also going to get so many chances to be able to get eliminations from players coming in from zone, all that, maybe even snipe away one of the top tier players while they're, trying to recover after engagement. So in general, we're going to be seeing a lot of offensive pressure from some of the players that we've seen consistently throughout the VHEL and the SEC. No, not SEC. ESC, thank you. Qualifiers, those players who've been constantly getting 20, 30 eliminations per game, yes, they're going to be going for those offensive pushes. And if you're not in that kind of range, you're most likely going to be looking for some kind of opportunity to be able to shut them down. So we look towards this zone where we are going to be getting that engagement already, reaping the benefits. And Lil Ramy and Reaper going to have so much opportunity to be able to collect some heals, all that's necessary, itemized to really have a decent movement potential though, right? They're not going to look to capitalize on the extra supports. You see the med kits that they do have, they might just wait to use those for a little bit. But so far, they don't really have a lot of intention on getting out of the storm for at least the moment being.
Yeah, and that's what Naz, and this is the thing. Early on, the storm doesn't do that much damage, so a lot of these players like to hang out and just tank that storm damage. But as the match progresses early on, it's really not a smart idea to kind of hang around in it, as that storm really does chip away at your health. And that's what Reaper and Lucky are doing. They're just kind of hanging by around the storm. They can tank as much damage as they want because it doesn't do that much. But again, sooner or later, they kind of do want to push up and to see what they can do. And as you said, a lot of these players who are very high in the ESC do want to go for those high eliminations because, again, it contributes to what they want to do, and that is basically be the best they can be at their top performance. And again, we see Twitch Eagle do also will take down on WoW. So that's going to be, again, the top players who normally make a lot of their teams, we're probably going to see their names a lot in this tournament, as we just see Reaper and now Lucky soon to be rotating out, looking at a bit of push. Again, they're still in the storm, so it's going to be a lot of times they do have health, so they can pretty much tank it, as we see over to Radioactive, who is, again, all by himself. He's just camping out in a bush, and sometimes we also see a bit of players who just go by themselves, trying to solo it as much as they can, and sometimes we see them make into the top 10, the final 10 teams, and other times they get eliminated very early.
Yeah, I mean, I remember for my school in particular, when they had their championship in the duo section, one of their players ended up having to work, and due to that, they weren't able to, play as a duo. They had to have one person just try and fill as many points as possible. And obviously, that's kind of something that you're going to be seeing happening in this kind of scholastic and general lower, I guess, age of play is going to be those players who are coming in by themselves, right? Their commitments to other things might be forcing those 1v2s, and that's something you have to be aware of. And you'd imagine that Radioactive, they're not going to be too hindered by this. You see their current play, they're not doing anything irrational. Instead, they're taking a very smart play by sitting in bush right outside the zone. As soon as this does start to overtake them, they have those med kits in order to continue to stay alive and just kind of halt their presence. And as you do see a little bit of players starting to be in the rear of them, that could honestly be a bit of a detriment for Radioactive. Unless, of course, they rotate through a different way where they won't see them, this could get very, very deadly very, very quickly.
Indeed you do. And again, some particular popular choices that we have seen a lot for these players is usually they rock the iron pump shotgun. Usually it's an assault rifle. Not sure what is the most popular rifle that players usually pick, but you do see a lot of players always rock that iron pump shotgun, and that seems to be a lot. It does a lot of damage, and it's usually if they can usually stack one or two, that seems to be a lot of the options. Again, sometimes maybe the dual wield shotties, as we normally see players also rock that as well. But like you said, usually it's players who go by themselves. They just usually camp on the bush and just want to take it off by themselves. And sometimes it is a viable strategy. It is that, but again, it's always about if you can survive, just be aware of your surroundings. We head over to Dumble Snore. He's trying to go for a bit of elimination on the fence. He's in trouble, but it's not going to matter. He gets an elimination, and it's a tie, and it's 2 in total between Direct SAP and Double Snore. So he is going to rev his teammate, and again, Sherry, you have a point. This is going to be a player's choice. It's going to be who wants to, again, just maintain their position. As again, Double Snore is going to try. He gets all of his health back thanks to the Slapperoni Pizza. So now chilling outside. The force storm is shrinking now. So players are going to start maybe push up towards where the new storm ring is. It's going to be a lot of waiting and engagement to see who is going to catch somebody off guard.
So far, still outside of the zone. Dumble Snore gonna have to walk up on some opponents right and near, but oh, never mind. They're all the way under the ground. So let's see if that connection does end up coming, right? Will they have the foresight to try and challenge this? If they do end up going for something as precarious as a fight underground while the zone is coming up from above, that could be a way to isolate your opponents, not allow a third party to transpire. But as of now, it is just going to be a 2026 catch-up, fighting possibly over in this small little building, little room to play with. However, 3 shield gonna instantly find the knock and thirst.
Knock and thirst probably what we're going to see. A lot of players, again, this is a good strategy. As we see Destiny aims and catch, immediately box themselves and just trying to, at least now with the overdrive grenades, which does grant them a bit of a slap effect and for the time being, as the new storm circle has start to shrunk. And again, 3 eliminations between in total. Destiny with 3, catch up with 0. But again, it's not about how many eliminations you can get so far. It's just your placement value. And sometimes having a high placement does get you a lot of points, as we see Destiny aims marking a bit of location. So that's also going to be a very good idea, seeing who's going to mark a lot of times. And I haven't seen much of the players do it a couple of weeks, just mark their location. This is the first time we're seeing it a bit of live, but as you always know, Fortnite usually updates all of these things, so sometimes things tend to get a bit broken in the newer updates. So see Destiny aims boxing themselves in, and they're going to chill out for the time being as we head over to another team. Shammy and the Bean going over there. Seem to be a lot of trouble. Shammy with 41 health, very much in trouble as Shammy tries to rotate and gain as much as he can, but he's going to sit down. He's going to use the Slapperoni Pizza to try and gain as much health as he can for the time being. Meanwhile, their fortress is being attacked by Jano. Jano's going to try and knock to break it down, but he's not going to do anything. The quick reflexes of Shammy and his team to get out of there.
It's Risky playing on the high ground, looking to try and contest. So far, the refresh on the heals gives them a bit of cushion room to play with, and the refresh on the materials is going to give them not a whole lot of extra, as still maxed out on the metal. 19 teams, still alive. Lots of players you're going to have to get through if you want a high placement, but as another group of individuals does fall, you see that kill feed starting to light up. As you can mention, Shammy under a lot of pressure, and as this floor does get taken, they're no longer going to have complete control. There's the cone to try and refresh. They now have control over all parts of this building, and still just looking to dance around with how the placement does end up looking, able to control wall as well. The Bean with the flank hits him nicely, and now Skimmy gets on into the box.
18 teams left in the match, and as Geno immediately gets eliminated, but Shammy and the Bean also in trouble, down to 52 health, boxing up immediately to gain a bit of more health. We can see them use probably up the last of the Slapperoni Pizza, using their mini pots for the time being, and now they're up to 82, and now Shammy going to use his slap chucks for the time being, and now they're fully back to a couple of shield. Looking to gain more over to Ruski. Ruski also in trouble. The Storm Circle is shrinking down on them. Ruski just able to get out of there, and now it's Bean who is going to try and take out a bit of the fortress. That's a smart idea. They do get blue, but it's not enough to eliminate them for the time being. Bean gonna make a push. He knocks down Dumbledore. Dumbledore also in trouble, and there's another elimination for Shammy and his team as well. 6 eliminations in total.
The 3 med packs gonna give them a bit of room to play in the storm, as Rook is gonna be the next one down, as Ruski already put through the ringer. Now the Bean can be forced into the med kit, and so far the zone very far away. Not a whole lot of movement utility. They utilize the shockwave to get in. They're going to use a second to look towards crossing the river. It seems as if they haven't really realized that they're leaving a player behind. However, they don't really have too much of a worry. 30 players still remain, and they boxed up looking to try and get that heal refresh.
They are. You can just see them circling up, and now they're gonna box in and use the last of their med kits. At least for Bean in total, he's gonna use the last of his med kits. Gonna drop off that pot. So now they have enough shield, but they don't have a lot of the med kits, unless Shammy does have a med kit somewhere in his inventory. He probably does. As Ruski once again gets put through the ringer. Once again trying to build it up, trying to survive as much as he can. The Bean and Shammy looking to make a bit of a pressure, but Ruski is once again boxing up, trying to survive the onslaught as much as he can. You can just see the rotations are so on point between these two teams. You know they study a lot, and once again, take a look at the map. That storm circle is completely starting to shrink as we see radioactive now just getting out of the way once more. That storm circle is very much shrinking to 46 seconds left before the new one emerges, and this is where a lot of the action and the chaos starts to heat up as that storm circle completely starts to shrink. You can see lots of players up in that top left corner slowly trying to engage as we see, I think that is another player who is also knocked down. So Chaotic Sweat is all by himself trying to survive as much as he can. What to see what he can do for the time being, and it looks to be he is eliminated, so that is a unfortunate break for him. However, it is game 1, so we'll see what he could do in game 2 as Big Mac Munch is pretty much all by himself in the midst of the storm, in the heat of the battle. You can see over to Quad Nice and Kiki. 3 eliminations in total between the two teammates as Quaternice tries to regroup with his team, and again using a bit of the high ground, requesting for some materials. He does have a lot, and we see him rocking that Chaos Order shotgun, so hopefully we'll have to see what Quaternice and his team can do again as the next storm circle, 20 seconds left for it's approaching as they shoot once more. Radioactive all immediately down to low health as we see Quad Nice and Kiki ready to make another statement, but it's just like Radioactive, he's going to get some more health back.
So far, Quantai is just playing close on the high ground, but as the zone does pull the exact opposite direction, you gotta imagine that these players who adopted a strategy to take height early on are going to be really kicking themselves afterwards. Now, they do have some grenades to get on into the action a little bit faster than one would have initially expected, but so far they got to restage themselves. The wood comes out and the congestion already found.
They're boxing themselves in. This is actually good for Quan Nice and Kiki. They're not trying to play a bit aggressive, but they're also trying to at least gain a bit of speed advantage. And then look at this, they're going after WTJ, and a knockdown for Kiki as well. A great play, catching him off the guard. It's always got to make sure to keep your head on a swivel, as they always say. Again, Quan Nice going to box up, use the comb, busts out the wood for the time being, and then again, swerving in and out of the storm, just tanking a bit of the damage. And now as the next one circle approaches, you can see how small it is, and this is where we start to see so much chaos as Quad Knight shoots from above, tries to gain a bit of the high ground. So far he is so high up, and he does have a bit of the momentum, but he's so vulnerable in that scenario. Just because you do have the high ground does not mean you yourself are also vulnerable as well. Again, 15 teams left in the match, 24 players left. Quantize again, they're just gonna park the bus for the time being, and not gonna engage in any more firefights for the time being, as they're gonna go and drop up out lower. And again, new storm circle is approaching, and this is going to be pretty much where the end game starts to pick up. Lots of these teammates don't want to make any bit of a crucial play and play too greedy and cost them a chance to win the match. We see Shammy rotate out near the edge of the storm, tries to gain a bit more. He's going to try to meet up with his teammate. Yes, he will, but he does take a bit of damage, down to 44 shields that's left. He's going to use one of his mini pots to at least gain to at least about half of that. And now, again, these two teammates have 7 eliminations in total, 13 teams left in the match. Quan Knights uses the shot grenade for the time being and just going to park it out. And he's going to be in the storm. Not sure it's a good idea, but we'll see. It does pay off. Quan Knights, again, starts to build once more. Thunder Yard gets a knockdown over the radioactive. 12 teams left. And Cherry, I gotta say, this is where teams are going to start to play real more aggressively in these final moments.
Yeah, you gotta imagine Quantai is playing a little bit too haphazardly with their utility as they dropped in the majority of their mats, now only down to 164. You gotta be a little bit more conservative, as well as the shockwave getting pulled in. You have that ability to refresh your heals with that double shield potion. But so far, as the reconnect does come in, both able to turtle together now. Hopefully the materials do look good over on Kiki's side, as Quantai is clearly not going to have a whole ton, and they're going to get a little bit of refresh on the steel. Also 60 brick into capabilities, might be able to make anything happen. Hayden completely maxed out on materials. Why they're not playing for height is beyond me, but I feel like this should be a measure that they can take now. Going for 90s might be the inevitable play, but no, instead just going to opt to turtle into zone, staying low, staying inconspicuous.
they're staying real low right now. And again, this is the place that we talked about, just playing a bit passively, not going for eliminations, just trying to survive and catch teams off guard. As we're now into the final 10 teams of the match. Hopefully, so they do a bit of a firefight as Ninja goes down, but Haydenator is going to make a pay, but Haydenator is also going to take some damage as well. Down the foot, but he's not going to escape from WoW. And it looks like that's going to be the end of game 1 for him. Down to the final 8 teams as it's the Bean all by himself. Down to 7 teams left in the match as the Bean pops himself in. Looks to Turtle for the time being. Using up the last of his... No, not last of his, but he does have so many materials. He's low on steel. He's running out of steel for the time being. And he's going to switch over to wood and brick for the time being. Hopefully he can save as much steel as he can. He's going to box in and just Turtle for the time being. Again, 9 eliminations in total for this team. Bean with 6, Jenny with 3. But the Bean is also just in a lot of trouble from below and high up as the Storm Circle shrinks again. Now for the last time, Bean just gets rocked by Thunderyard. And now it's down to the final 6 teams. Eagle Dill and Ollie himself. Not by himself again. They have 8 eliminations in total, and now it's down to the final teams. Quadanize with 1 elimination, but down goes Quadanize as Reaper makes him pay. Down to the final 2 teams. It's all up to Reaper and Reaper Lucky, and it appears to be Eagle Dill going by his lonesome self, but they're getting an attack from up top. As Reaper tries to gain the high ground, tries to catch Eagle Dill, but Eagle Dill, all so quick as he is, just trying to evade, has the high ground for the moment. They take him out, get him down to their lower level. Reaper once more, he's gonna try and dash in and out, see what he can do. Tries to get Eagle Dill, but Eagle Dill is just so good, evading all what he can, trying to engage as much as Eagle Dill just trying to survive what he can do. He's bossing himself in, he's rotating as much as he can, just trying to survive. Look at the plays by Eagle Dill, surviving as long as he can. It is a stalemate, survive as much as he can. Oh, but look at Eagle Dill, able to get 1, but it's not going to matter as Lucky finishing him off, and Reaper and Lucky take game 1.
The champions arise as a decent showing, to say the least, between the two of them. To be able to have 7 kills between both players, really putting in all the stops, as well as that championship prize. A #1 victory royale going the way for them, and you really got to give credit where credit is due. From start to finish, they did not look to have too many issues coming their way. Obvious when you consider battle royales like this one, a decent portion of it does come down to luck, but there wasn't a lot of luck in this one. Their end game play, positioning, mechanics, discipline, everything invested into this one game looked phenomenal. So right now we're just going to see whether or not they'll continue. And I mean, I'm looking at this team as a real team that could make that championship.
Yeah, I agree too. And you take a look at what was going on in that final moment. Eagle Dill just surviving as long as he can. I gotta give preps to everyone in that match. Eagle Dill looked like he could get the 1v2, the absolute comeback, but again, it was just not in his favor. Lucky just kind of catch him by surprise, and that is usually the unfortunate series. When you go against a 1v2, sometimes it may work out in your favor, other times it may not, but either way, we'll be right back with Game 2. Do not go anywhere. You are watching the VHEL on Twitch. Welcome back to Game 2, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching the VHEL. This is Fortnite Drops Week 6 of Division 1A. We are in Game 2. Just to recap for Game 1, we had a heck of a final circle between Eagle Dew and the two players who are champions of Game 1. As always, I'm Kansas W. Alongside me is Cherry. And Cherry, do you expect things to be similar to game one, or are we going to see something different heading into game two?
I'd imagine that realistically, the same playstyle will likely occur. Maybe we'll be seeing it ending a little bit faster, but overall, there shouldn't be too much changes, too much adaptation between what is going to happen in between game one, game two, as kind of the overarching story is going to be a lot of teams are going to maybe even be a little bit more confident, and I kind of throw caution to the wind a little bit more as they're realizing, okay, yes, we're going to need so many points to qualify. We need to get a little bit more aggressive. We need to make sure those kills do get secured, and that could possibly lead to a bit more of a kind of offense-styled game, different than what we saw in game number 1, where we had that 30-player endgame or so. Or it could be the other way around, where teams are getting a little bit more cautious, understanding the fact that, the school year's almost over. The season's going to be done relatively shortly, and they need to make sure they can pull out a couple more points before they do end up going into that postseason or whatever does lay in front of them.
Yeah, and this is, I think for game two, we're going to see a bit more players kind of play a bit more cautious, because now you have an understanding of how players come in. Sometimes they play aggressively, sometimes they stay in the back, so it's going to be a bit of a different play style and see how teams engage with each other, as we see Reaper and Lucky, champions of game one, hanging around Painted Palms. They're going to just start gathering materials as much as they can. This is a good strategy as always. And again, very early on the game, players drop left and right as always. Participants dropped in the same area, and it's always, like I've always said, usually just get your stuff, know what you're grabbing, get what you get, and just get out of there in the quickest of ease. And sometimes players usually just get catch off guard, as again Reaper slowly mining bricks as he can, trying to see what he can. He's currently have about 303 as he's rising quickly up to almost 400 steel. And this is, again, usually for a lot of endgame stuff. Sometimes players, they do mine that stuff so they can get ready for a lot of time, start to box themselves in, usually rotate around their 90s. And again, this is pretty much just a slower paced game now coming into game two.
I mean, it is just a little bit of an interesting idea, right? We're not seeing Lil Ramsey, Reaper, and Lucky playing too offensively, a contrast to what we've been seeing previously, but it does seem like they're going to have a bit of understanding towards where a couple of their opponents do lie, right? You see them being a little bit cautious, looking to scout out their opposition. Going on over, might be seeing an engagement between Jax and BK and a couple of other individuals on the opposite side playing the cover of this house, and so far, neither team going to get too offensive.
Yeah, not a lot of teams going to be offensive. As we see Jax and Beakster, who were eliminated pretty early on in the matchup, or very early on very early in the mid stages of the match, trying to maybe run it back, and now they have a bit of idea as look to be surveying a area over to where we see Coel and Outcast are at. So this is going to be very tough for Jax if he can. He doesn't want to make a big mistake like he did in game one. As we just see, maybe that's Outcast looking to make a push. Oh, Jack's going to catch them off guard. Outcast immediately realizes it and slowly retreats. Immediately got rocked by that shotgun. And Jax is going to retreat and trying to get more, but he's going to get shot, and he's down to 71 shields as he slowly retakes. And again, Jax trying to gain a bit more high ground as he rotates out and tries to get a bit more high ground. Just going to hang around that storm circle for the time being.
Already, just looking to get those heals online. Jax still 71 shield, right? Do you want to invest a shield potion into that? Likely going to use the sword canisters instead, as Now you see him starting to just organize the inventory, see what they got going right now. As we do see not a whole lot in capacity in terms of materials, you're gonna likely see him with that kind of 300, 400 range. But this zone certainly going to be an interesting one. We're gonna be seeing players on the south side gonna have to start scurrying up towards northern of the Fortnite island. Meanwhile, players on top side are likely gonna look towards playing in top center, as the current speculation one would have to give is that the zone is going to inevitably close towards that kind of north, mid-north side. We can't really give a overarching estimate just yet. However, it's likely going to be something along that Fortress, maybe Palms,
Yeah.
maybe in between Dark Dominion and Sandy Strip. But so far, you look towards how the map does currently present itself. Not a whole lot of players up towards north side, right? You got obviously a team over towards Tip Top, a team to the east of them, a team to the east of that. But beyond that, that's everyone who's going to be kind of playing towards that top side of the island.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable where the storm is going to appear next. And like you said, it may be that northeastern side, right around let's say Frigid Fortress, for example, as Modi and Quad Knights, who were close in game one, trying to make a run back in game two. You go see them there again, just going to take it out in the storm. And as always, very early on, the storm does not do much damage, but as the match progresses, it starts to trickle away at your house, and you really don't want to be caught around in that storm when endgame starts to approach. As they're hanging around Sus Studios for the time being, trying to grab as much materials as they can. Again, same side we saw Jax, not a lot of materials to work with. Again, rocking with some Chug Jugs and some shield potions for the time being. Again, they have the Chaos Order shotgun and the combat assault rifle. So it seems to be a bit of the popular two between the match. We haven't seen much of the Enforcer AR this season. It probably got vaulted, as it seems to be again the Nemesis and the combat assault rifle, again two of the higher teams, as well as the Iron Pup shotgun, a very popular choice between players. It was heavily popularized in season one. It's welcomed by players to see it back in season two, and it seems to be again heading over to Ninja and Haydenator, a very team that we also saw in late in game one. Just very unfortunate, did not win, but again, this is a chance to really step it up in game two and see what they can do. As again, Hayden seems to be kind of backing off and just to rotate up and head towards the storm, going up a higher elevation as they can. As Hayden's going to use that zip line, and again, players have been really getting accustomed to the movement. Again, not a lot of movement this season in terms of getting around the map very quickly. It's mainly just using the zip line to try and reach higher places of the map. As we see, hey, they're going to subway add some slurp juice, going to pickaxe it away to gain as much as he can. But I think he was just going for materials and not going for the slurp juice, as Ninja gets shot up, but he's going to regain. It seems to be Ripper from higher above, tries to make a couple of plays, but it's not going to do anything, as Ninja and Haynator escape to higher ground.
Unfortunately, the high ground will be unequipped for zone travel, and so far looking for some kind of exit picks, but realistically, this canyon could be the deciding factor between whether or not this team lives or dies. However, eluding their opponents, EJ Ninja as well as Hayden going to be forced to rotate more in towards zone, getting the refresh on brick. These little brick stones can be so nice for getting extra materials. There's the max on the wood. Yep, they're going to max out on the brick because these things can really give them a lot. I think this is like 90 or so each. This one's probably going to be around 60 divided by 2 players. You're going to get 30 each. Really just getting that extra bit of refreshing on the brick. As now spotting some players, however, opting to not try and take a challenge. Instead, really looking to play for that positioning.
I thought they were going to engage for them the time being. They had to clear open shots, but they realized, no, we don't want to risk kind of letting ourselves just be out in the open, so we're just going to hide in the bush. A very smart strategy by these two. So obviously they didn't want to engage for the moment. They're just going to back off, and I don't know if that's going to play them up, but I think that was a good idea, just kind of not engage. Again, a lot of times they're in the bush. They have the opportunity to go and take out these players, but again, they're just not going to. They're just going to sit and let the chaos around them unfolds. They're hanging around to the short side, and speaking of, they're going to gauge, fire a couple shots, lands a couple, but no damage for the time being as they survey Shax. We see him below. They're gonna try and engage. Shax is all by himself, but he's going to get out. Cash immediately falling behind him, shots fired once more, but again, none do not land, and Cash is going to head back in the bush and kind of game for the time being. Use the chug splash for the time being, but he's not going to do anything. Cash trying to regain once more with his teammate as he fires off shots at Geno. Geno way out in the open. He's got to try to box himself in, and he looks to just escape for the time being as Cash once again is going to meet up with Lord Wraith. And we haven't seen much of Lord Wraith. It's mostly been Kaz that's been kind of doing the heavy load of the team. Maybe this game will see a bit more offense coming from him as Kaz again is going to mark up with destination. Wraith spots an enemy player, but he's not going to do anything as there's 24 teams left in the match. Kaz once more is going to use the grenade to gain a bit of higher ground. Going to get a slap effect. He's going to be hitting the water. He's down to 66 shields, boxing himself in. And Geno looks a bit of pressure. Geno. Oh, Geno's on his tail. Cash immediately troubled Geno. He immediately applied a bit of the pressure. Tried to fire a couple more shots, but it's not going to do anything as, oh, Cash escape, but not at cost. And he is down in the storm. Ruski gonna follow in, and there he goes. Cash immediately eliminated. It is now up to Lord Wraith to pick up the slack.
Unfortunate to say the least. No reboot card to be picked up. The Storm not doing a whole ton of damage just yet. Only 2 damage to tech, so it is still possibilities alive. However, I don't love this positioning from Lord Wraith. Spending a lot of time in this lower part of the mountain. I mean, you do have the heals. You could try to play a little bit slow for the time being. However, they're going to inevitably start peeking their way on out. I was a little bit afraid that a couple of players nearby would spot them out and force them to stick inside the mountain for the time being. However, the zone's still unfavorable for them. And this is a crazier zone than I could have predicted. Very much so outside of all, center possibilities. It's going full north. You're going to get some of the water surrounding the island in it, I'm pretty sure. It is really unfortunate, to say the least.
Yeah, I think the storm, like we said, the storm is always random, so you never know where it's going to go. Sometimes it may look like it's going to do the standard shrinking around places like Forge of Riches and Fallen Paradise and all that stuff. But again, as we head over to Riker Viper, and Riker Viper just taken immediately out of the sky by Bodhi Don't Miss. That is his second elimination of the match as we approach 20 teams left in the match. As Quad Knights and Moreno Abyss, obviously, they do want their revenge, and they're going to turtle and try to shelter this in, or not. Quad Knights immediately recognizes where they are at. They're also a bit of trouble out in the open, but Quad Knights just gets out in the nick of time. He's only has 60 shields left, but he has the shield and the pizza to hopefully regain himself, as Quad Knights, I don't think he sees a fortress there, but he's not going to do anything, and now he's going to box himself up, look for a bit of higher ground. He's going to start using the 3 of his full shield pots to regain himself back to 100 shield. As we see him just survey the top area, the reboot card is as now Cash is back in the match, but Cash once again is going to get knocked down.
How did they get that res off? Cash's reboot card was in the middle of nowhere, but already, Valen playing a bit aggressive. Staying on the edge of the zone. Lots of players going to be coming on in relatively shortly. The pizza down, giving them a bit of healing opportunity. And so far, not going to be landing themselves in zone, unfortunate. But they are going to be close enough to the point it isn't the biggest, exploration to get inside. In terms of materials, you got to imagine that they should be flushed for the time being, but getting this information! Ooh. And Ripa lacking that understanding, lacking that intuition that they're about to get sprayed, will instantly drop down, gives them the refresh on materials, all up to 300, 500. No wood, unfortunately. Looking to try and get the shield pots, won't be able to. Still 4 shockwaves. Could really start creating some issues.
Indeed it is. So, I mean, Ripple just really, I didn't think he saw that coming. He just peeked around the corner and he got absolutely blasted. And again, as always, sometimes you gotta be aware of your surrounding as Jax, and seems to be a bit knocked down for the time being as Valve, FN, and Thunderyard again, with fresh materials on their mind, they're gonna try and start building up, making a bit of high ground as Valve. Again, try to get a bit more hard. Once again, the rotations are very on point. Again, they're in a position where they don't need to kind of push themselves. Again, just a bit outside the zone. As again, they're gonna use the shockwave for the time being. As Valve Survey pushes up the side of Frigid Fortress, and they're being fired at down to 17 shields as Valve bots himself in, gonna turtle for the time being. Again, lots of shots heading towards their direction. Their structure is being immediately damaged. Again, against the 16 teams left. As Valve, they realize they're gonna need a heck of a lot more to gain back of themselves. Again, they're gonna use the pizza, a very good idea. They're gonna save it for the time being, as that storm circle slowly shrinks away. Lucky is very much in that storm circle. He is trying to get out of there, and he's going to do just that. And once up Ali and Eagle Deal, who was the unfortunate, tried to get winner of Game of do it himself, but unfortunately did not get the win to do. He's going to probably want that run back, as the seventh, so we're in the seventh storm circle approaching in the match, as the time ticks away as we head towards the eighth one. And again, this is where Eagle Deal, I think he had a bit of a good showing out in game one. You obviously know he wants to make up for what happened in game one, and he looks to so far he's doing pretty good in game two, I will say that.
I'm just going to be looking to try and get themselves back into zone, but so far going to have to cross the entirety of the zone to get in, expending all utility. Ollie looking to try and evade any shots, maybe even go for the supply drop. Will be unable to make it happen, taking a bit of tick damage, and as their teammate does start to connect to him, could possibly be able to make something happen. Electing not to turtle just yet to utilize material. Instead, it is just going to be a fast-paced rotation inputted, as so far just playing around this iceberg, looking to try and make something slow and carefully. But Ollie will get themselves into zone.
Yeah, I also said, but you also saw Ollie take a bit of the fall damage. Not exactly the smartest idea when going to rotation. You obviously don't want to take as much damage, but down goes Lucky as Eagle Deal gets another elimination, his second of the match. Looking to make the run back as he can, as Eagle Deal, they're going to try to box up, use the cones for the time being. As again, let's take a look at the map as the 8th storm circle is upon us. That's the next one is really small. We head over to 0 point in each. I haven't seen much of them. As we take a look at Kuchi AF, as him and Maxi, I believe, with 0 eliminations, they are pretty much playing just for position at this point, trying to regroup with their teammate as AFF tries to once more, and he's going to start rotating out for the time being. See what he can do. Maybe the tries just to push for the time being. The 2v1 in his favor as Beast is knocked down. They do get one elimination. Trying to go for another one, but it seems to be they just escape for the time being. As, again, their player is just down and out. A very unfortunate for Beast in that moment. As Haydonator also seems to be knocked down. Approaching the final 10 teams in the match, Pumps and Destiny aims against a bit of firefight. As, again, Jack Attack, he's going to take out Ninja again. And it's up to 11 teams now. This is the very start to where we see the end game start to form here, Cherry.
The damage being dealt, the medkit looking to try and relieve some pressure, but with the HP ticking downwards, this 10 damage is keeping them just put between a rock and a hard place, and there's that ending damage! Putting them down. 8 teams remain, 11 playful. Ego Dill playing on the high ground, able to crack the first shield. Puts them in a position that this should just be a championship in game number 2 done. As the winners of the last game already having Lucky down, you're forced into Reaper alone. And that's also assuming they're still alive. We only saw the 1 kill converted.
Yeah, we only saw one player go down. We don't know if Reaper is still alive. I do not see him on the mount, so it looks to be he is eliminated. So it looks like the champions of game 1 seem to be out of the match as we approach the final 17s on the match. Eagle 2 and Ollie himself again with the high ground. This is probably a lock-in for the win, or will it be as General spots him up top, fires a couple of shots, and does some damage, but Eagle 2 is going to use the slice of pizza to regain as much as he can. As Eagle 2 fires up board, does significant amount of damage towards Geno, and now Geno has to regroup, and down goes Channel with the knockdown, trying to follow up with the elimination, and it's down to 6 teams left. This will be 5 if they can knock out Geno, as Eagle do regains more, and number 5 is on the board for Eagle do. Excuse me, he has 3. Now it's 5 in total between these 2 teams. Again, they're going for the high ground. The final 5 teams in the match, they are out of the fist, so they can't get back up, but they do have the elimination, sorry, not elimination, but the materials. But as you can see, they're running low on it. Ruski all by himself, 9 eliminations in total between the 2 teams, down to the final 3 teams. Chaotic Sweat all by himself. The 2v1 is certainly not doing well for him, as Rookie tries to fire but to break through the mirror barrier, but he himself is going to take a bit of damage. Down to 31 health. Sweat also in trouble. Sweat just getting out there, but the Storm is doing enough of his damage on his own. Sweat just trying to get out of there, but it's not going to matter, as Eagle do and Ollie are your champions for game number 2.
Phenomenal work coming in, and you gotta give credit to everyone competing here tonight. Phenomenal work through and through from all of the competitors in the VHEL spring season. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you to our phenomenal producer, Edge, for giving us this phenomenal show. And you have been so great to work with, Kenzo. Thank you for joining me here on the desk. And thank you to the viewers for coming in once more to, see another epic Edge showdown within the VHEL Fortnite duo season. But that has been it from us here on the stream. See y'all next week for some even better Fortnite action, as it's going to get better throughout this entire season, all the way up until the finals. Talk to you later. See you soon.